Welcome to Elisa's Back Porch Design, and today on Seems So Crazy I'm going to show you a really fun project using charm packs and my 3.5-inch template. Charm packs are these nifty little packets that a lot of fabric companies have put together, and they have an entire line of fabric in the little packet, and the number of fabrics in there varies depending on how many fabrics are actually in the line. And my little 3.5-inch template just happens to fit perfectly on the 5-inch square, and one little charm pack can make a table runner like this. I use this one on my dresser, and the nice thing about it is that I get one little piece of each of the fabrics that is in the line, and so it's really nice so that if you wanted to go into your stash and cut out a little 5-inch square from each fabric and then you have to put the fabric all away, it's really nice because you don't have to do that. You can just buy the little charm pack and choose whatever line of fabric that you like. Or also, if you're new to quilting and you don't have a huge stash yet, you don't have to invest in 30, 40 different fabrics in order to create this scrappy look. And let me show you another one. This is another line of fabric, and what I've done with these is I've just done kind of my random crazy curves look, but you also could do them in a more organized way, and I will show you one that I've done. This is called Friends and Flowers, and with this one I went through my charm pack and I pulled out, let's say, the blue fabric, and I put those blue fabrics together into this rectangular block. I paired together my yellow fabrics, and I chose, for this fabric line, I chose a white background, but depending on the fabric line, you could have a black or any kind of a neutral that worked together with the line of fabric. And this one happens to be a pattern that I have called Friends and Flowers. And let me show you the back of this because people are always wanting to see the back, and I happen to find this really cute little bug fabric. And so this makes a very cute quilt for, to me this just says little girl cuteness. So let me take you over and I'm going to show you how to cut out the squares on the fabric packs. This is another line that I have here from a different fabric manufacturer. They have their fabric squares also. And you can see that this, the template fits on here. It is a little bit of a tight fit in the sense that you don't want to be cutting this piece first, because if you cut this piece first, what you're going to end up doing is cutting into the piece that you're going to need for the pie shape. So what I want to do is I want to cut the pie shape first. I can move this out of the way. You can use a 45mm rotary cutter, or you can also use the smaller rotary cutter. I like to use a mat that rotates, and I'm going to show you why in a second. But the trick here is to hold this securely in place and start with my rotary cutter. I take a little cut backwards, then I'm going to cut around the shape. I want to be careful that I'm not having my rotary cutter at this angle or at this angle, because then I'm going to be cutting too far away from it. But I want to keep it upright as I go around the template. I move this away. Now I can place my L shape right like that, and I'm going to cut the two straight sides. I like to start and go backwards so that I'm not running directly into the template on my first cut, and then I'm going to still hold this in place as I pull these little pieces out of the way. Then I'm going to make the cut at the top and again pull this away, because sometimes when you're cutting you're not pressing hard enough, or you miss some of the pieces, and by holding this in place you're not then pulling this out, and then some of the threads are still attached and then you've just slid everything. Now I can rotate my mat, and then I can make the cuts on this side. Now I cut two little pieces here. I would layer, actually there's 4 there. I would layer up to 4. I wouldn't do more than 4 pieces, because instead of cutting through, your rotary blade starts pushing the fabric over and you're not getting as accurate of a cut. But you can see I'm going to go ahead and use the 45 on this one. The trick is to keep it upright so that you're not running it into the curve itself. And you see, this is where I didn't keep it straight there. And so what I can do there is, by holding it in place, I can come back and get that. This one also, this size, would fit around here just nicely, again by keeping it upright and not running into the side. And again, I've cut 4 little pieces. So what I want to do, these are some more pieces that I've cut, and if I'm doing a scrappy one, what I would basically do would be cut out all my pieces, and then I would randomly choose pieces that go together. I probably wouldn't put these two because there's not enough contrast between the blocks. Just like this one that I've sewn them together, you can't see where the curve is. So that would have been a bad choice to put together, but this one comes from the same fabric line, but this is a very good choice. But I don't spend the time to go through all of the pieces and organize them. I would basically just have my pie pile and then my L pile, and I would just kind of randomly go through them and just kind of pick one and say, that'll work. And then the sewing. So many people are afraid to sew with curves, and depending on the curve, it's really not that difficult. One of the things that you want to remember is this is cut on the bias. And one of the things that I can very easily do, if I take this and stretch it out, this no longer is going to be the same shape as my template. And so I've basically, you want to be very careful with stretching that on the bias. So basically that makes that one no longer any good. And what I want to do is I'm going to put my L on the bottom, my pie shape on top, right sides together, and I'm going to align this edge right here. Now I'm using my regular presser foot, and I have my needle moved over to a 1/4 inch position. You can use a 1/4 inch foot, but I like the way the feed dogs connect better with my regular foot. And depending on the type of machine that you use, some people actually like to have the L shape on top. I prefer the pie shape on top. Now you've seen I've taken a few stitches, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be lifting my presser foot. I have my needle in the down position, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be aligning them on the edge. And the trick is that I'm lifting the top fabric, but as you remember, both of these are on the bias, so I want to gently be moving this piece over and this piece straight so that as they go into the presser foot, they're staying on top of each other. There's no need for me to have it matched way out here because I'm not sewing out here. The only place it needs to be matched is right as I'm going into the presser foot. And so you can take your time and go slow and just lifting the top piece of fabric. And now when I get almost to the end, you can see I don't have really any room to hold it, and that's where I use my tweezers. And what I do is I would lift this top piece of fabric. This tweezer goes in, and I normally would do it with my right hand and lift it, but I want you to be able to see this. So I lift this, and this is right at about 1/4 inch where I'm sewing. Then my finger can hold the bottom piece of fabric, and then I just sew it all the way to the end. So then I would take my next piece, and I would just chain piece these through there. So I do all of my cutting, then I come back and chain piece my blocks. And after a few of these, you get much better at it. It takes just a little bit of practice because we're not usually used to sewing with 2 hands, and we're used to matching up the fabric ahead of time before it feeds into the feed dogs. So here's my block. And the fun thing about this is that you don't have to clip this. This is going to press either in or out, as in these two. This one is pressed towards the L, and this one is pressed towards the pie. And the nice thing about that is that when you go to sew them together, if you have one of them pressed in this direction and the other one pressed in this direction, it's going to make the seams match up really nicely when you go to sew those together to get your curve. And the way I would press these is that I would press from the back, either in or out, depending on, half of them are going to go in and half of them going out. Press it in from the back gently, and then I would flip this over and then press it from the top, being careful not to stretch that as I go. Let me show you some ideas that you can do with these. Remember we had this quilt that uses just the one charm pack. And depending on how many fabrics are in the charm pack, I kind of have to, I might have some extra fabrics because I need to have enough of the length and width depending on how many are in there. For example, if I have a charm pack, this one has 33 squares and this one has 44, I can obviously make a bigger table runner with the more squares. I can also make it a different shape, but also you could use 2 charm packs and make it bigger. You could then use 3 charm packs and make it even bigger. So you can use the same fabric line, but you're just getting more and more charm packs. But once you get to 4 charm packs, you might as well go into a layer cake because a layer cake is 10 inches. And so by folding this layer cake in half and in half again, I essentially have 4 charm packs, and then I can just cut from there. So you could essentially just keep going bigger and bigger with your quilt using the charm packs, or you could just stay simple and do the little charm pack and make your table runner. If you don't like the random look, if you're wanting to do something else, you could also put your blocks together in a little bit more of a traditional design. You could put these on point and add some fabric in here. Also matching your colors a little bit more to where it's not quite so scrappy looking. So those are just a few of the ideas. I really think that if you went out and picked out one of your charm packets, I think you'd have a lot of fun. I think you'd get over your fear of sewing curves. And I'd really like for you to send me your quilt. Make one and send me a picture, and I'd really love to see it. And I hope to see you again. Thanks. Bye.